And I spent every summer as a teenage boy at Taliesin from the ages of 12 to 14. And because there was a chronic shortage of workers at Taliesin, I was trained to do things I had no business doing. I drove every vehicle from dump trucks to tractors and everything in between. I ran a tar pot. I don't know if you know tar, but tar expands about 2,000 times its size on contact with water. So when you have a fire in a tar pot, you throw a tarp on it and you pray that the tarp doesn't have a hole in it because you're spraying the tarp with water, hoping to smother the fire. So I did that. I roofed, I plastered, I painted, I cut stone with a wonderfully talented Egyptian stonemason who brought me along too fast, left me with a really nice piece of stone, went away and came back and I had broken the stone and he never spoke to me again. So it was like a roller coaster of emotion from absolute ecstasy of doing things. Oh, I forgot to mention I raised ducks and I raised chickens. And it was just a roller coaster of highs and lows. That was classic Taliesin experience. You learn by doing and you learn by failing. And both were incredibly educational. But to my grandfather, you probably can guess that he was not the sort of grandfather that dandled you on his knee and told you stories. My first encounter with him, I'd been at Taliesin when I was 2 years old, but when I came back as a 12-year-old, I was immediately put into a silo, forking out dead silage. And if you've ever done that, it's fermented, and I had to basically burn the clothes that I was wearing. So I was doing that, and he came into lunch, and he came up to my table and said, "Well, boy, how does it feel to be shoveling shit and pulling tits?" And that makes me blush now, actually. My cousin Visser, his daughter, sent me this correspondence between Wright and her father. And 1929 was a very bad year for Wright. Oddly enough, Frank Lloyd Wright could not get a building built in the latter half of the 20s when America was booming. And then in the 30s, he rose like an eagle and created an entirely new grammar and vocabulary and became really world famous by the end of the Depression. So he was kind of counter-cyclical. But in 29, he was just on the cusp of the Depression. His Taliesin had been taken by the state of Wisconsin for unpaid back taxes. He was finally able to be newly married to his mistress with whom he had a child in 1925, following the finalization of the death of his second wife, who was a crazy person. I think it's fair to say. If you've read T. Corrigesson Boyle's The Women, published a couple of years ago, that's an extraordinary portrait of of Miriam Noel, as well as Mema Boyko-Chin. But so Wright was in a sense free to marry, but he couldn't return to Wisconsin because part of the condition of the garnishee of Taliesin was that he not appear. And so he had gone to Arizona. He had a group of 15 disciples. The fellowship hadn't been started yet, but he had 15 draft people and hangers-on who were down there, and he was designing a fabulous resort for a wealthy guy named Chandler to be San Marcos in the desert. Well, September 29th, October 29th, whenever the stock market crashed, that was the end of Chandler. And that was also the end of Wright's $40,000 fee, which was what he would have gotten had Chandler built. So his cousin Jenkins, his cousin Richard, felt genuinely sorry for him. And so he asked him to design him a house. Now Richard was the editor of the Tulsa Tribune. And let me just call up This is Wright, probably a little later than 1930. He was Wright was 62 at that point, and Richard was a few years older than him. This is a younger picture of Richard. Now, I don't know how to explain that hair. Maybe Freud could, but I can't. But Richard Lloyd Jones was a prosperous businessman, the editor and publisher of the Tulsa Tribune, which was a rock-ribbed Republican sheet, and in every way diametrically opposed to what Wright's thing. And so this correspondence forms a kind of classic interplay between a businessman and an artist. And as such, I think it's worth quoting at some length. Richard takes on the Lloyd Jones family. He said, "We think we're an exalted group, a lofty clan, super intellect, super character. Anybody should feel honored who has the privilege of meeting us. And by that very meeting, they will receive an intangible but benignant uplift which seeps out of our system." Now you have simply taken that philosophy and carried it to an exalted point. You have gone on the history that when you do a bit of work for somebody, they are under everlasting obligation to you. You have a trade. I want to use the word trade. Your trade is house planning. You have something to sell, house plans. You sell them. Your client pays the full market price. Then forever after, you think there is a perpetuating bill that is due you because they live perpetually in a beauty which you create. What would you think of Marshall Field if he sold a beautiful coat and then kept reminding his patrons that they are under obligation to him because he sold them such a beautiful coat? Get this, Frank. The way to be happy is to make others happy. Your idea has always been that the way to be happy is to do whatever the hell you want, whether it be lawful or lawless. Tell the world to go to hell, insult everybody who doesn't approve of you, and demand that others be denied their rights and happiness if it stands in the way of what you want. That has been your philosophy. It is criminal. It is diabolical. It is vicious. And it has left you industrially, commercially, and artistically bankrupt to such an extent that you have had to take a gigantic contract, this was with the lawyer he hired, in which all your work is invested before you can draw a penny. Okay, so it goes on and on. This is a 9-page letter. Wow. Now, why should I pay you for the privilege of getting all heated up over a thing like this when you get mad at your wife for sending $75 to her sister? You ought to be giving her $75 and more to send to her sister. You have spent your life strutting around like a ridiculous peacock, making yourself disgustingly conspicuous. And you have destroyed friendships, disgusted would-be patrons and clients, and brought your past family as well as your present family into distress and dire want. If only you had been human. If only you had been intelligent. If only you had been a Christian. If only you had been at least an American instead of a Lloyd Jones. You should have been a millionaire now with a world of friends knocking at your front door and clients beyond your capacity to accommodate. So he goes on for a couple more pages, and then he says, "This letter needs no answer, and I hope you will not try. With every good wish and more hopes than I can express, I am your cousin, Richard."